Well, good morning and welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to London, and a particular pleasure to welcome President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud as my co-chair today. I want to start with a small apology, which is that I will have to leave after the chair of the African Union has spoken, as I have to chair a cabinet meeting here in London, but I'll leave you in the capable hands of Foreign Secretary William Hague. Here in this room, just over a year ago, we set out to help the Somali people to reclaim their country. And today, I think we are seeing the beginnings of a new future for Somalia. Extremism is in retreat. AMISOM, together with Somali and Ethiopian forces, have driven al-Shabaab out of town after town. Piracy attacks are down by 80%, with no vessel attacked so far this year. Government is moving ahead. Under the guidance of the UN and the African Union and IGAD, the transitional government that lasted 8 years has ended, and now there is a proper, legitimate and federal government in its place. And Somalia doesn't just have a new president, but also a new parliament chosen by representatives of all clans. The international community has kept the promises that we made last year. The UN Security Council resolution extended the mandate of African Union forces beyond Mogadishu and increased their numbers. Mauritius and the Seychelles have taken pirates for prosecutions, and 59 convicted pirates have been transferred to prisons in Somaliland and Puntland. And we're working together relentlessly to disrupt the travel and the financing of terrorists in the region. But the transformation in Somalia that we've seen has not happened just because 50 countries sat round a room and a table like this in London last year and somehow decided Somalia's future. This change has happened because of the vision of President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud and his team, and because of the strength and courage of the Somali people in beginning the long and difficult task of rebuilding their country from the bottom up. But for all the progress that we've seen, huge challenges lie ahead. Somalia still faces desperate poverty. Over 200,000 children under 5 are acutely malnourished, and just under half of all Somalis live on less than $1 a day. Despite the gains made against al-Shabaab, the recent tragic and despicable attacks in Mogadishu, including one just last weekend, remind us how much work there's still to do in the fight against terrorism and extremism. Now, these challenges are not just issues for Somalia. They matter for Britain too, and for the whole international community. Why? Because when young minds are poisoned by radicalism and they go on to export terrorism and extremism, the security of the whole world, including people here in Britain, is at stake. And to anyone who says this isn't a priority or we can't afford to deal with it, I would say that is what we've done in the past, and look where it has got us: terrorism and mass migration. We made that mistake in the past, not just in the Horn of Africa, but also in Afghanistan in the 1990s. We must not make that mistake again. Today, nearly 2/3 of Somalis are under 25, but most young people don't join al-Shabaab because they believe in its perverted version of Islamist ideology. They do it because they are desperate for a few dollars and a mobile phone. So helping young Somalis to escape grinding poverty is not just vital for the future of Somalia, it's also the best antidote to the extremism that threatens us all. Somalis make a great contribution to our country here in the UK, and their remittances play a valuable role in Somalia. But many would like to return to rebuild their own country. We need to make it safe for them to do just that. Now let me turn to how I hope we can do that today. Supporting a new future for Somalia starts with the humanitarian relief that is so vital in alleviating some of the worst poverty anywhere on earth. I'm pleased that Britain is playing a leading role and saving lives and helping Somalis build resilience to future crises. And I hope others will follow. But Somalia's new future depends on more than humanitarian assistance. It's about the Somali government providing the security, the stability and services that are essential for people to secure jobs, to start new businesses, and to provide for their families. That means supporting what I've called the golden thread of development, the set of key conditions that are essential for growth all over the world. These encompass basic security for all, including the protection of women against sexual violence. That means a military that is effective and respects human rights. It means a police force that people run towards, not away from. And it means a justice system that is fair, dependable, and accessible to all who need it. It requires a government that is transparent and accountable in its use of resources, and inclusive and representative of all parts of society. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud is today setting out his plans in each of these areas, and I hope that as an international community we can get right behind him. First, I hope that together we can back a long-term security plan to end al-Shabaab's reign of terror forever. I'm pleased that Britain will commit £10 million to help develop Somalia's armed forces and £14.5 million to double the number of police officers and to train judges and lawyers. Britain will also support the new maritime strategy, enabling full radio connection all along the entire coastline for the first time in 20 years. I hope that others here today will contribute too, and that countries in the region will stay the course and work with Somalia while it builds up its own forces. Second, we need to help Somalia develop a transparent and accountable government with an honest and accurate budget so that it can access the vital finance it needs to deal with its debts and to provide services to her people. Under the previous government, Somalia struggled with endemic corruption, so I very much welcome the commitment to public accountability that the President has made and the plan he's setting out here at this conference. Tomorrow we'll see a major international trade and investment conference with companies from all over the world looking at Somalia as a place to do business. But for investment to flow and for jobs to be created, people need to know where their resources are going. The international community must send a strong signal to the international financial institutions about the need to follow the World Bank's lead and help Somalia to deal with its debts and to access the vital finance that it needs. And I will seek support for this from my G8 partners when we meet at Lough Erne in Northern Ireland next month. Third, we must support the new Somalian administration as it takes the next steps in delivering a fully federal government in which everyone has a stake and a voice. That means continuing the process of rebuilding the Somali state in an inclusive way with all the regions of Somalia around the table. It means reaching beyond Mogadishu so all parts of the country see a demonstrable benefit from the new government and moving towards the ultimate goal of national elections in 2016, which we discussed this morning. And while Somalia must focus relentlessly on fighting terrorism, it will not bring its people together through military might alone. So there will need to be an opportunity for those who are willing to reject violence and to turn away from al-Shabaab to join the political process. Mr. President, I know that you face one of the most difficult tasks of any leader anywhere in the world, but it's only by bringing the people of your country together and by delivering the security, stability and services essential for jobs and growth that you can deliver the new future for Somalia that is within your grasp. For our part, let me assure you, we as your friends and partners will stand with you as you rebuild your country. We know that Somalia's future will be shaped by Somalia and with Somalia. This is not something being done to Somalia. Today you're setting out your plans for your country. Our task is clear, to get behind you and your plans. That is what we will do. In her book entitled Keeping Hope Alive, Dr. Hawa Abdi, the physician and Nobel Peace Prize nominee, wrote about her time in the midst of Somalia's darkest hours. She said, "Hope is what remains as we wait for peace, even as we bleed and we starve. It may be that right now we are living for hope." Today, after 2 decades of bloodshed and some of the worst poverty on earth, hope is alive in Somalia. Now it's time to fulfill that hope for the people of Somalia. That is what they've been living for and waiting for, and we must not let them down.
A few weeks ago, I planted a young sapling tree in the gardens at Villa Somalia in Mogadishu to raise the issue of deforestation. And it got me thinking, what does a young sapling need for it to grow into a strong, healthy tree? It needs to be supported with a strong stake, It needs to be watered and fed, and it needs to be protected from animals that try to eat it, so it is soft bark and kill it. And so it's with this young sapling we have all planted together, call it Somalia. We need support, we need assistance and investment, and we need protection from those who try to knock us over. The first period of growth is always the most hazardous, where the most support and protection is needed. But as the bow thickens and strengthens, the tree needs less and less support until finally it stands broad and tall and strong, all on its own. My vision for a federal Somalia at peace with itself and its neighbors, and which poses no threat to the world, a Somalia with a resurgent economy, thriving small and medium-sized business ventures and sustainable employment so that families are properly provided for. A Somalia with values of kindness, respect, and human rights, all underpinned by an education system that harness our intellectual spirit. So we are here today to begin a 4-year process that must begin with a considerable investment and support, but which I hope will finish with very little. Heads of states and governments, excellencies, ambassadors, special representatives, honored guests, the Prime Minister and I welcome you to the second Somalia Conference in London. Mr. Prime Minister, I wholeheartedly thank you and your government for your personal engagement in shaping our future and for your support in hosting this great conference. I particularly congratulate you for reopening your embassy on our soil in Mogadishu after more than 2 decades' absence. People may ask why Somalia matters at this time, but there is a huge amount at stake right now. The future of our country, the security of the region and the world at large, and the removal of the piracy stranglehold on the Gulf of Aden. I know you all understand this, and I fully appreciate the political capital being invested to support Somalia. Since the last meeting held here in London more than a year ago, more has been achieved than anyone would have ever imagined. In just 1 year, the cornerstone of a new Somalia have been successfully and peacefully laid down. The political transition has ended, and I stand here as the elected president of a sovereign nation with an elected speaker leading a new parliament, representative of all the regions and all the clans and communities, and with a legitimate and effective government delivering 6-pillar policy framework, the foundations of a new beginning in Somalia. Progress has defied the skeptics. Somalia has rejoined the world of communities. Under my leadership, we offer the world a legitimate partner you can trust, hard at work to deliver an integrated national security plan, economic reform, and a new financial management system, rule of law and judicial reform, an environment conducive to commercial growth. We are achieving real progress week by week, month by month, but challenges do remain. Despite being militarily defeated, Al-Shabaab have melted into the society and began a new phase of insurgency and a campaign of terror, an experience I know that Great Britain comprehends as well as any other. Our constitution is only partially complete. Piracy must come to an end. Millions of Somalis still live in desperate conditions as refugees in neighboring countries and as internally displaced persons in their own country. And we lack developed government institutions, schools, hospitals, roads, sanitation, and other basic services. As you will hear over the coming hours, however, we came to London to share with you our detailed plans to address these challenges. We are building our armed forces. We are restructuring and developing our police force. We are reforming our justice sector. And we are revolutionizing our public finance management systems. We are driving Somalia from emergency to recovery and from recovery to development and reconstruction. Ultimately, however, it will be a Somali-owned solution that will fix Somalia. But no country has ever recovered from such social and economic collapse without the help of the world. And so, in partnership with our endeavors, we respectfully ask for your total and unflinching commitment, partnership, and support to Somalia. We hope that you will agree how you can support the implementation of our plans and put an end to our dependence on the international community. The federal government of Somalia has laid down the foundations for a new public finance management mechanism, which we believe will enable our donors to agree funding arrangements with the confidence that funds will reach their intended recipients. The progress that has been made in Somalia over the past 3 years would not have been possible without the courageous support of IGAD, the African Union, our brothers and sisters in AMISOM, and the ultimate sacrifice made by many brave African soldiers. We owe to it their memory to ensure that we do not take one single step backwards. The progress that has been made in Somalia over the past 3 years would also not have been possible without the committed support of the United Nations, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. We owe it to the publics who contribute to these governments and institutions to see this process through a conclusive conclusion. We are also indebted to the kindness and generosity of countries like Turkey, Norway, the Arab League, member states, and other countries. Your assistance over the past few years has spread hope and belief among our people. We welcome ANSOM, the new United Nations mission in Somalia, and we are grateful for the consultations offered in agreeing both the mandate and the appointment of the new SRSG in Somalia. We congratulate His Excellency Mr. Nicholas K. on his appointment as the new SRSG. We are looking forward to receiving him and the new UN mission in Mogadishu soon. I wish to thank Ambassador Mahiga, the outgoing SRSG, for his relentless and determined effort in leading the design of the roadmap and seeing the transition through. Our best wishes and tribute go to him. The people of Somalia are eternally grateful. Winning the war in Somalia has been proven. Winning the peace in Somalia will take patience and great skills. We are at a critical junction. The time is now. We have little time today and lots to achieve. All of us, especially those in the background who have worked so hard to make this conference happen, will want to depart with a real sense of progress. I thank you all for coming and for your dedicated support for Somalia. Together, we can make Somalia strong again. A tree standing tall in the African bush with deep roots binding it securely to its region and offering shade and protection to its people as they rebuild their lives. I thank you.
Let me begin by saying violence against women is a crime against humanity, be in the times of peace or in times of war. there are no excuses to make violence tolerable, be it physical, psychological, sexual abuse, slavery, or traditional practices that violate the physical integrity of girls and women. Somalia has unfortunately struggled with much of this for some time, but has yet at the same time has now come a long way. More than 2 decades of violent conflict has destroyed every state institution that we know, including the police and justice system. The situation of women over the last few years has made life an extremely difficult experience for many girls and women in Somalia. With lack of proper health care and health infrastructure, the life of many women and girls has just simply become unimaginable. Add to this the constant risk of getting shot or raped, and you begin to see the dark situation many women have faced over the last few years. The Somali government is committed to make this particular chapter part of the past. That's why the President has unfolded his 6-pillar policy plan for Somalia. Among the top priorities are reforming the police and justice, as you heard, a crucial element of the development of Somalia, and a crucial part of ensuring women are free from any violations. Furthermore, as a signal of our commitment and in accordance with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2093, 1960, and other national and international obligations, the federal government of Somalia, with support from the United Nations and the international community, is committed to own, lead, and undertake the following measures: developing and implementing the post-transition human rights roadmap in close cooperation with the independent expert on the situation of human rights in Somalia, issuing through the respective chains of command of the army and police command orders prohibiting sexual violence, and reinforcing the commitment for zero tolerance of such violations in army and police codes of conduct. Reiterating the clear signal that impunity will not be tolerated by undertaking investigations of alleged violations and ensuring punishment of perpetrators through the criminal justice system. Developing and implementing a comprehensive strategy in line with the religious and deep-rooted Somali cultural values to prevent and respond to sexual violence, as well as encouraging and supporting the work of the service providers. Implementing procedures to ensure the protection of victims, witnesses, journalists, and others who report on sexual violence. Strengthening the protection of internally displaced people and establishing measures to protect women and girls in the camps from sexual violence. In line with the strengthening the rule of law, we are committed to reform the Penal Code on Rape, support the Office of the Attorney General to develop specialized investigation capacity for sexual violence crimes, train magistrates, including women magistrates, and other women in the justice sector, build capacity for justice mechanisms at local level, raise awareness for women on legal procedures, and address protection of women in traditional justice systems. Also ensuring access to service, including medical, psychological, legal aid, and compensation to survivors of sexual violence, including in the newly accessible areas of the country. The joint communique agreed today between the Somali government and the United Nations is representative of our absolute commitment to the prevention of sexual violence and to deal with this terrible crime. I welcome the support and commitment shown by the international community to support Somalia with this issue. Be under no illusion, violence against women is a crime against humanity, and the Somali government will spare no stone unturned to eliminate this evil act. And I thank you for your attention.
It's my hope and expectation that today's deliberation will also go some way in expediting the overall institutional building process that is underway in Somalia at the behest of the federal government, as well as in bringing the international community's pressure and support to bear on the monumental task of finding lasting peace and stability, not just in Somalia, but also throughout the region as a whole. Excellencies, this conference is very important for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it will point the ways and means of building on the success that the Somali process has registered so far, and to help improve the many shortfalls that still confront all stakeholders in the region. More importantly, it will help further consolidate the federal government's own strategies and policies to expedite the state-building process it has already undertaken. In this regard, the slow process of implementing the six-pillar strategy of the government will hopefully gather new momentum. The efforts to create a security apparatus that is inclusive and fully representative of the cross-section of the Somali population needs to be jump-started if the gains that have been made so far are to be further consolidated. Al-Shabaab is still a threat to peace and security, and it is thus imperative that we further enhance our concerted effort. We shall not therefore lose sight of our strategic mission, which is uprooting Al-Shabaab. Any difference among stakeholders is of secondary importance in the context of the dangerous enemy we face. What happened in Arusha only the other day by terrorists is a stark reminder of the real and the present danger such extremists, Al-Shabaab or any other, pose to our peace and stability, as well as to the lives and prosperity of our citizens. In fact, what happened in Arusha could as well have happened in Addis Ababa or Nairobi or even in London. That's, of course, one reason why we in the neighborhood have been paying tremendous sacrifices in our fight against Al-Shabaab in Somalia and beyond. This conference will also hopefully contribute and further inform the efforts underway to find ways to expedite the process of establishing functioning state institutions, both at the center as well as in the peripheries. The capacity of the federal institutions to deliver basic services to citizens leaves so much to be desired, and as such, maximum effort needs to be exerted to work on this particular deficit if we are to have a Somali population that could place confidence in its own institutions' capacity to deliver services. This is doubly important mainly because this will deny alternative sources of authority in Somalia, both malign and benign, the opportunity to challenge the legitimacy and authority of the federal authorities in Mogadishu. There is an urgent need for building functional government structure and institutions at all levels for the delivery of basic services. Establishment of local and regional administrations and the stabilization of such regions require urgent and coordinated efforts to further isolate Al-Shabaab and build confidence of the Somali people in the future of their own country. There are still millions internally displaced persons and refugees awaiting their return home and rehabilitation. We recognize that the federal government of Somalia is doing its level best to mitigate this challenge, but the magnitude of the problem demands a coordinated effort of all stakeholders. The efforts to establish credible and regional administrations that will serve as the building blocks of a functioning federal Somalia must be given further impetus. It's my hope and expectation that this conference will contribute to the regional efforts aimed at the resolution of the current impasse in some parts of Somalia. All along, primacy should be given to the principles enunciated by IGAD, namely leadership of the government of the Federal Republic of Somalia in the process, respect of the provisional constitutions by all stakeholders, all-inclusive consultative process with the people of Somalia, supportive role of IGAD based on its priorities of the Somali government, and fighting the Al-Shabaab as a primary focus of the Somali government, AMISOM, regional and international partners, and further request to the Somali federal government to align its priorities with the aforementioned agreed 5 principles. Excellencies, While the conference will certainly have contribution in helping the Somali stakeholders move forward in their effort to resolve their problems, it's however, the role of the Somalis themselves that does not and should carry the most weight. It is important to understand that outsiders cannot substitute for the Somalis in all the efforts to resolve the current impasse among the many actors within Somalia. We can and should only play a facilitating and monitoring role in the entire process. It is imperative that the process of stabilization be Somali-owned and Somali-led. Having said that, however, there are very many advantages that this conference could help generate. First, this will create a valuable opportunity to harmonize the international community's efforts to support the political process in Somalia and to avoid the rather counterproductive proliferation of initiatives from different quarters, however well-intentioned. Second, it will help mobilize the resources necessary to build the capacity of Somali state institutions to deliver services to citizens, the absence of which could ultimately erode the legitimate authority that the government wields. In this regard, the international community's support for strengthening the Somali security apparatus should be given top priority. But more importantly, this conference will help in reorienting the focus of the international community's support from its heavy focus on security to a long-term rebuilding and reconstruction of the country. In this regard, the international community should go beyond promises and do everything it can to back words with action on the ground. The enterprising people of Somalia deserve all the help we can provide in order to put their house together. Excellencies, it's not my intention to talk at length about the advantage of having a Somali at peace with itself and the nation, with the institutional capacity to take care of the needs of its citizens in many, if not all aspects of their lives. Suffice it to say that a vibrant, functioning, and peaceful Somalia means the difference between the series of debilitating crises that characterize the region and an economically integrated region that can contribute to global development as well as international peace and stability. We as neighbors are more than eager to close the chapter of conflict that has sapped most of our resources and imperiled our resources for far too long, and open a new one where the issue of peace and security goes to the back burner and economic cooperation and development comes at the center stage. Let me therefore conclude by reiterating the commitment of my government and that of IGAD to contribute their share in this noble endeavor and our readiness to join hands with our partners in the international community. I thank you for your kind attention.
In the Christian religion, we talk of the Holy Trinity: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Similarly, we also need to talk of the Peace Trinity by bringing together the internal stakeholders, the respective regions, and the international community. In the case of Somalia, we have moved well through the Somali actors agreeing to form a national government in Nairobi in 2004, and the Somalis electing a new parliament and president last September, the region creating AMISOM, and the international community giving financial and intelligence support. This trinity has been able to defeat Al-Shabaab in Mogadishu, Kismayu, Afgoy, Baidawa, Malka, Johal, etc. However, Al-Shabaab is not eliminated from the whole of Somalia. They still maintain rural bases from where they operate undisturbed, away from the regional and the Somali government forces. It is from those rural areas that they infiltrate into the towns and kill people. This is not good. Anybody who kills people must be held accountable. We have shared our views with the President of Somalia. In our view, the following is needed. Number one, rapidly training the new officer corps of the Somali Army, comprised of young Somalis with advanced level secondary education and above, so that the soldiers we have been training with the European Union have leadership. Uganda is ready to train any number of officer cadets that Somalia can send, even at our own cost. Number two, training the non-commissioned officers who link the officer with the soldier. If an army does not have an officer, if it does not have an NCO, that army is not an army. Number three, training the technical staff of the Somali Army for tanks, artillery, aviation, etc., so that the Somali Army has a technological edge over the terrorists. I know we want to keep a level playing field in many situations, but you cannot keep a level playing field between the army and the terrorists. The governments must have an edge over the terrorists. If you only maintain infantry equilibrium between the government, army, and the insurgents, that is the best way to maintain insecurity in Somalia. The government army must have technological superiority over the terrorists. Number four, using army aviation, e.g. gunships, and air force to target the terrorists who are killing people with impunity from their rural bases. In this connection, the UN should replace our gunships that perished in an accident in Kenya on their way to Somalia, so that we use them as force multipliers. Number five, the Somali Army should expand recruitment so that we are able to have both mobile and zonal forces. The zonal forces should guard the liberated area, while the mobile forces, aided by Army Aviation and the Air Force, hunt the terrorists. Number six, the Somali Army needs to integrate the militias, screen them guided by professional standards, and thereafter carry out fresh recruitment from the villages to raise adequate numbers to guard the country. In Uganda, we use the quota system for recruitment. Every district must bring an assigned number of people to join the national army. In that way, Somalis will build a national army by terminating factionalism and warlord loyalties. Number seven, while training young officer cadets is crucial, also training the older fighters from the militias, who are quite often illiterate and cannot write, is also crucial. Special courses should be designed for them, ensuring that the inability to read and write notwithstanding, these leaders know what needs to be done practically. Section attack drill, platoon attack drills, etc. should know them practically, even if they cannot write properly. Number eight, now that basic training at Bihanga in Uganda was ended, let us send the trainers inside Somalia so that we do the training there. If these steps are taken, security will be restored in the whole of Somalia. That is the responsibility of the Mogadishu government. Piracy will also end because the pirates come from land. They are not aquatic animals. They don't live in water. At least they have not done that yet. Finally, while privatizing companies is a correct economic solution, privatizing the state is not a good idea. Much of the financial support should go through the Somali government so that it builds capacity. To bypass the Somali government and pass funds to private groups will compound the problems of Somalia. I thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today as part of the Deputy Secretary General's delegation to support the journey that Somalia is undertaking towards peace and prosperity. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has made ending conflict-related sexual violence one of his top priorities and a personal cause. I had the opportunity to visit Somalia recently, and I met women and children who have been the victims of this terrible crime. Their testimonies are haunting. Their plight must galvanize our collective determination to eradicate sexual violence in conflict. A central aspect of prevention effort must be to put the spotlight firmly on the perpetrators, to send them a clear and resounding message that there cannot be no hiding place or safe harbor for those who commit such crimes. The joint communiqué agreed today between the United Nations and the government of Somalia on preventing sexual violence in conflict represents an unequivocal signal of intent and commitment of the government of Somalia to deal with the problem head-on. I commend President Mahmoud and his Deputy Prime Minister, Fawzia Adam, for their will to lead from the front. This represents a light for survivors of sexual violence and women and children who remain vulnerable. It is a reassurance that they are not forgotten, that their protection is the highest priority at the highest level of their government and of the international community. The joint communiqué outlines several crucial areas for intervention, including addressing impunity and putting in place the health, psychosocial, legal, and other services that are so essential for survivors. In the coming months, the United Nations will support the government to develop an implementation plan on the basis of the commitments expressed in the joint communiqué. At the same time, I appeal to the friends of Somalia, particularly you around this table, to ensure that the government of Somalia has the support and resources to deal with this issue in a comprehensive and decisive manner. Wartime rape is not an inevitable byproduct of conflict. To eradicate it, therefore, is not a mission impossible. Together we can and must do it for the vulnerable women and children in Somalia and elsewhere. Thank you.
I would like to thank Prime Minister Cameron and my colleague, Secretary Haig, for organizing and hosting such a high-level international conference on Somalia in London. Turkey considers the Somali conference as a highly useful occasion in further galvanizing international support to the peace-building and state-building process in Somalia. Excellencies, we welcome the presence of His Excellency President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud as the co-chair of this timely conference. It symbolizes the Somali ownership for the ongoing international efforts. I am confident that from now on, Somalis should be in the driving seat of all future endeavors concerning Somalia. Turkey appreciates the able leadership of President Mahmoud for the accomplishments since September 2012. Under his leadership, the Somali administration has undertaken tireless efforts to secure the territorial integrity and political sovereignty of Somalia. Turkey always stands behind the Somali leadership and the Somali people in their sacred cause. Dear colleagues, the Somali people have full sense of hope for their future after long years of conflict. Our main responsibility is to keep alive this hopefulness in Somalia. To that end, maintaining the already gained momentum since September 2012 is extremely important. All in all, Somalia should be made a success story in the African continent. Today, the most urgent priority in Somalia is to follow a comprehensive and multidimensional strategy. This holistic strategy should be based on the six-pillar policy of President Mahmoud. We all need to record progress through simultaneous implementation of this policy. During the implementation process of the six-pillar policy, constructive engagement of the regional countries should be secured. A Somali federal state which controls its borders and ensures internal and external stability and security in the country should be considered as an inseparable part of peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. In short, trust and confidence should be re-established between the Somali people and the regional and international community. As Turkey, we would like to underline the importance of political reconciliation, rebuilding of the Somali security forces, and economic recovery and infrastructure development as immediate priorities in Somalia. Excellencies, all the areas which are cleared of al-Shabaab must have new local administrations in order not to have a power vacuum. National reconciliation is the key to achieving this. In this political process, The Somali federal government is our main interlocutor. Any important steps in the relations which we may wish to build with the local and regional administration must have the approval of the Somali federal government. Widening of its authority to the rest of Somalia is our main priority. Meanwhile, we attach great importance to the recent meeting between the leaders of Somalia and Somaliland last month in Ankara. Their determination to maintain the dialogue and develop bilateral relations encourages us about the peaceful future of the Somali people. Turkey will continue to fully support this process. Excellencies, rebuilding the Somali security forces constitutes the first imperative priority for Somalia. I would like to emphasize that Turkey, together with the Somali authorities, has already prepared a comprehensive plan on the future of the Somali military and police forces. My country has allocated additional $10 million ready to be used for security structures and military and police training, in addition to the humanitarian and economic assistance package of $300 million. Being aware that the restructuring and rebuilding of the Somali security forces should be a collective endeavor and that no country could undertake such a mission alone in Somalia, Turkey will appreciate all contributions to the Security Fund through which the most interested countries could render their thorough support to the work on the Somali security sector. Dear colleagues, the Somali people are in urgent need to have fundamental public services like health, education, transportation, water and energy supplies. Turkey continues to swiftly carry out renovation and economic development activities which have started to change the face of the country and instill a sense of confidence in the future. The international community should also begin immediately to implement some large-scale infrastructure and development projects in close cooperation and coordination of the Somali federal government. Excellencies, one of these 6 pillars is to establish, develop and increase the capacity building of Somali institutions of both central and local ones. It includes sending advisors to the ministers, providing training programs and rebuilding to the infrastructure of the ministries, among other things. It also includes encouragement for the returning of the Somali diaspora. These should be seen as the prerequisites for providing public order and security in the country. Excellencies, we are very pleased that the UN Assistance Mission in Somalia, ANSOM, will be established as of 3rd June 2013. So you might recall that Turkey has been bringing the need for a new full-fledged UN mission in Mogadishu to the attention of the international community since the end of 2011. We believe that the short-term priorities of new UN mission should be undertaking several projects in the political, military, security, economy, development, humanitarian and good governance and justice areas. One of the main tasks facing the new mission is to help Somali central and local administrations in preparations for future local and national elections in the country. Dear colleagues, in concluding, I would like to encourage partners of Somalia once again open embassies and offices in Somalia rather than in neighboring countries. In this regard, we welcome the opening of British Embassy in Mogadishu on 25th April 2013 and we congratulate British government. I hope we can meet in a secure atmosphere in Mogadishu soon for such conferences and meetings on Somalia. That will be the historic turning point if we meet all of us in Somalia, despite of all the risks. Without taking this risk, we cannot show to Somali people that our destiny is same with their destiny. That is very important, and I suggest that the next meeting should be organized in Mogadishu, whatever risks is being taken. That is our proposal for next meetings. Not Istanbul or London or any other place, but Mogadishu and Mogadishu and Mogadishu. With these thoughts, I would like to express that Turkey will do her best to continue the momentum of state building and peace building in Somalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like, on behalf of the Commission of the African Union and its chairperson, to take this opportunity to congratulate President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud and his government for laying the foundations for national reconciliation and the reconstruction of Somalia. I would also like to reaffirm the African Union's unwavering support for the Somali government's effort to rebuild Somalia and its institutions, including its defense and security sector. What has been accomplished in Somalia has exceeded what many thought was possible. However, the gains remain reversible if appropriate support is not provided to the Somali federal government. Allow me to highlight 3 areas that we believe deserve our attention. First, it is important to emphasize that the Somalis, in particular their political, clan, and religious leaders, have the primary responsibility for the consolidation of peace and security in the country. We strongly urge the political leadership of Somalia and all other stakeholders, in the best interest of Somalia, to continue to show selfless leadership, resolve, and unity of purpose. For without such dispositions, no amount of external assistance will make it possible to consolidate the gains that have been made in Somalia. Second, we have to continue improving security. If the Somali security forces, AMISOM, and the Ethiopian contingent are not adequately supported, the hard-won gains might unfortunately be reversed. AMISOM alone cannot stabilize Somalia. It needs, in particular, to operate hand in hand with a well-trained and equipped national army whose knowledge of local military, cultural, social, and political conditions is vital. Furthermore, Al-Shabaab is down, but not out. Concerted efforts must continue to be deployed to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat the extremist group. This will be made possible by enabling and assisting the government to invest in the restoration and extension of state authority through effective governance, rule of law, and the delivery of peace dividends. In other words, Somalia needs well-trained, well-equipped, disciplined, loyal, and sustainably resourced military and security services able to defend and protect the country's territorial integrity and sovereignty. This should be our priority. Third and finally, we all agreed in the first London conference that there was a need for coordination of our efforts in Somalia, but on the ground that has not yet been realized. We still need clear division of labor amongst Somalia's international partners, and we still need to recognize each one's role if we are to deliver effective support to the federal government of Somalia. The impact of this coordination and harmonization will in turn expedite and enhance state penetration in terms of service delivery, governance, and other critical public responsibilities and functions. It is our hope that from this conference, a modus operandi will emerge on coordination and harmonization, such that the government of Somalia takes the lead in integrating our activities and the support provided to various institutions of the country. I thank you.